Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is February 5th, 2024 at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room of the middle school. I'd like to recognize all those in the audience tonight. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Steve, would you be willing to read the school board norms?
The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, and commit to assessing board effectiveness and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Steve. I'd also like to note that we have Gail Nelson on the phone tonight joining in. We have no public communication tonight. Are there any conflicts of interest the board would like to declare? Are there any conflicts of interest? Moving on, under consent agenda, would the board like anything removed from the consent agenda? Would you like anything removed? If not, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Jason to approve. Second by Aaron. We have a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under our regular agenda, we have some recognition tonight. And Jason, would you please read the names and the information we have there? For the students, just please come join me right over here. I have an item for you, and then we'll put you up on the stage here for a photo.
Music recognition: Shelby Dunwoody, a member of the Midwest ACDA Honor Choir, and Zach Jansen, a member of the WDA Start for the Do Saxophone Ensemble. I apologize if I messed that up.
Yep, and moms can come right up front, right in the middle. Get a good picture. We'll get a good picture. You've done this before. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Good job. Thank you for coming today. I always enjoy our student recognitions. We have nothing under correspondence, nothing under reports. Board education. We have strategic competency, Cognia review process. Mr. Gaylor, would you come forward and share your information that you have with us?
Yes, thank you. All right. And Dr. Leck had asked me to share this, and then I think in the next few board meetings, you'll be hearing from the elementary level, the middle level, and then the high school level over the course of the next 3 meetings, just around some data in general. And so we thought it was appropriate to start with a conversation about how are we currently using different types of data, and then how does that correspond with the strategic plan that we have in place? How does that correspond with what the board can expect from us with monitoring in the future? And then also, how does that correspond with building level improvements over time? So we'll start by just talking a little bit about the actual accreditation process. And forgive me for those who have been to DSI, or District School Improvement. You've probably seen something similar to this, but we are up for accreditation next fall. And so that process looks different than it has in the past. Most of the evidence that people are looking at is actually that evidence process is completed virtually. And when I first heard that, I was questioning it because, well, how good of a feeling can you get for a district virtually? They do offer a one-day on-site. The only expense that we would incur as a district if we wanted to bring external people in for that one-day on-site would be their travel costs. Our state partners with Cognia for accreditation, and so we would have that cost. But we feel strongly that that would be a value added for our district to get people here, doing some of those interviews in person, talking with students, getting the feeling in different buildings. And so we'd like to add that to our on-site. We don't have an official date scheduled yet. That's forthcoming. So we'll find out sometime in the fall. Cognia has updated their standards. I think in 2022, there's 30 standards, 4 key characteristics, and you'll recognize these as being the same themes that we have in our strategic plan. And elements of our strategic plan then correspond with those standards as well. So there's a long diagnostic process that each building will go through, which will feed into data at the district level around our performance in these standards. But more important than our performance on the standards is evidence about how we get better as a district. So we start with looking at data, which you'll see some data in the next 3 meetings, but we turn that data through analysis into information, and then we apply activities with synthesis to actually figure out what are our findings, what are the things that we feel like we can make a difference. And this is really an annual and continuous improvement process. So we have to have action steps. So not only do you find out what we could take action on, but each team, each building level has to define what is the evidence of the actions we'll take to get continuously better throughout the year. We're required to analyze 3 different types of data for accreditation, but it's also just great practice, and it's things that we want you to be able to see in your board monitoring as well. So that's student performance data, and that's a wider gamut than what you'd think. It could range from what's our activities and the type participation in the types of activities that we have, to how is this specific program or this specific professional learning working, and actually getting to the student level. And then it's also the student performance data that you're really probably more familiar with, and you'll see presented in the next meetings. Stakeholder feedback is all about engaging with the board, the community, parents, students, teachers, non-instructional staff to get those feedback loops, and then those building level teams analyze that. And then learning environment data is how we collect data on what we see in the classrooms. So stakeholder feedback, what we've done so far this year in October and November, schools administered a climate and culture survey. That went to students, teachers, staff, and parents. So we had individual school data, and we had district level data on that. In December, we had a staff survey that was for instructional staff, or mostly paras and teachers, and that was through the Vital Network. That was a partnership that was sponsored by the state. I know Dr. Leck has mentioned that at a few more board meetings, sponsored by the state legislature specifically to address recruiting and retention. And so that staff survey was analyzed on January 15th by building level teams, and they named action steps within that. We're currently in the process of administering a student engagement survey. That's a required state survey. It's just 3rd through 12th grade, and the results of that survey we can compare annually because we've done that survey, I think, 6 years now as a state, so we'd have data on that. We synthesize the findings from each of these surveys and then try to determine what action steps are we going to take to respond. Now, you can't respond in a year to all of the things that you might find, so that's why they have to take their findings down to just those things that they feel they can take action on within that year. Student performance data, and we haven't started this in DSI yet, but they've been evaluating different sources of student performance data that they want to dig into deeper. so that they can recommend some action steps. And then Elliott is our tool that we use for learning environment observations. I just had the privilege today of getting into some classrooms at Jamestown Middle School and Jamestown High School with a team of teachers. So these, veteran teachers, all the way to, third-year teachers who've been trained on this tool. And what we do is we go in and do Elliott sweeps. They're not evaluative. It's just data we're collecting on what's the learning environment like, what are the effective practices that are in use, and then how are students responding to those effective practices. Saw great results. We have amazing teachers in our district, and we also have some areas where we're already spotting some trends that we can grow. We know that we can continue to grow and continuously improve. Each building will get building level data on this, and we'll also get district level reports from the learning environment observations. So it's actually, in the former process, we used to have all these external people come in that would do Elliott observations just on, the 3 days that we had accreditation. This is ongoing. We had one day today. We have a couple days scheduled for elementary later this month. We'll have another day at the secondary level before our March meeting for DSI. We want to get this data so that we can feel good about it and take action steps based on it. It can help drive our professional learning and communication practices too. So we generate that data, we analyze it, and then analyze our learning environment using some evaluative criteria that Cognia provides for us. This is what it looks like across the span of a year. So we started in November gathering some of that stakeholder data. We've been analyzing that in DSI and then adding to our action steps. In February, we're collecting that Elliott data. March, we'll analyze student performance data and Elliott data. And then in April, we'll get together with each building to spend a full day completing the self-assessment diagnostic. So all 30 of those standards, and I'll tell you after the first time if that's a good idea to structure it that way or not. But we feel like because we've been collecting all this evidence and doing the analysis leading up to it, we feel like we can get that done in one day in April. Then in May and June, what our responsibility will be at the district level is to compile all those building level diagnostics, do our own analysis and findings, and then set action steps for that. So the student performance, stakeholder learning, that comes into a self-assessment diagnostic at the building level, which then feeds into the district level. The idea with this continuous improvement process is that we're taking small steps and collecting the evidence on that to see how those steps help us improve over time. So we're tracking that, and we're constantly gathering the data each year. So we're gathering student performance, stakeholder data, and learning environment data each year, taking those steps for continuous improvement, and that ultimately leads into revising our strategic plan annually. So we're taking our direction from the data at the building level to the district level and then revising that strategic plan. So it's a it's a continual process. We've got standards that we're looking at, and we're able to look at the evidence of what we tried and to see if we're moving the needle based on that evidence. So over time, that will give us basically like an accreditation process every year, which is how the new model is set up, so that the next time accreditation comes, it's not an event. This is just what we do, and we've got the evidence ready to go because we're continuously engaged in continuous improvement. Well, that's a lot of continuous. We're going to have a lot of evidence to assemble, labeled in folders by standards. They don't want, formerly when we would have an accreditation, you'd put all of your data into all of these folders, and they'd have to kind of sift through and make some assumptions. They want you to just do the analysis of your evidence, of your data, and then have your evidence in there. So it's a lot more onerous for us, but it's a way better result in the end as well. Took me a while to get there, but we got there. Our overall goal then is to make sure that when these things happen throughout the year with district school improvement, and we're getting that real-time data and the evidence of what schools want to try to make a difference, that we have a board monitoring process that aligns with those same kind of timelines and with other timelines that the board needs to have in place, so that then we can have that revised strategic plan that's responsive to what's going on in the buildings and across the district. Dr. Leck, did you want to add anything on this portion of it? So this is just an example of what that monitoring plan might look like.
Yeah, this is just an example of one of the sections of the workflow plan that I referenced when we discussed this when the policy or when the strategic plan was approved. You know, the only other thing that I want to draw attention to is that this is something, what's coming up in the next couple of months, next couple of meetings, is something that I'm really excited about. We've talked in the last time that we presented on assessment results that we wanted to become a little more granular. We've lived, you know, what I call we've lived in the aggregate a bit, and we're very happy. We perform very, very well at a district level compared to the state at a state level. We've known this for many years. We outperform the state consistently at almost every grade level. But what we want to shift to in any continuous improvement model, we want to own our results for what they are, and not at a district level, but at a granular level. So we'll be presenting to you at a demographic level, at a building level, give you a little more insight into where we are. And what I will say about that is our focus is really on growth. Of course, we look at the snapshot in time that our assessments give us, and that's important. Our biggest focus, though, is growth. What kind of growth are we making with our students? Because every kid, every day, comes to us from a different place. And we need to make sure that we are honoring the work that our kids are doing and that our students are doing to grow from where they were to where they end, and also honoring where their achievement is at in that snapshot. I think they are both important, but I would say I think the growth of where they go is more important than just where they finish. And so I'm really excited for the board to be able to look at this and see like I said, at a more granular level, how we're doing. And so we're thinking about all of our kids and not just how we do collectively as a district. So we're proud of how we do as a district, but we also want to talk about the celebrations we have at a granular level. We want to talk about the opportunities that we have when we are achieving below where we want to be, and then talk about how we're going to get there, because we want to make sure that we're looking at every single kid. And if we really want to drive district improvement and model continuous improvement, that's the place where we start.
Questions from
Any
the board?
questions? Yep, any questions for Mr. Gaylor? Diane?
Well, this is fabulous, and like Dr. Leck, I'm pretty excited about it. I wanted to back up and talk about the Elliott observation data. I'm always thinking of teachers and paras right there in the classroom on the front lines, you know. When you select this team that goes in, are they used to that many people being in their classroom observing, and how are the teachers selected?
So the answer would be it depends. Some of our levels have a learning walks process, or they've been involved in professional learning where teams of teachers then go in and look for specific strategies, and they might debrief with the teacher afterwards. It's not a huge team, so today it was 5 people, but we split into 2 groups. So we had 3 in one group and 2 in the other. And the part of that was our own learning with the process, so that we can, after each time we go in and do an observation, we can take time to debrief on that observation and just make sure we're calibrated correctly because there's some judgment in the ratings that you're giving. There's clear success criteria, but you're still seeing something and then having to interpret that. So because it was our first experience with that after the training, then we wanted to do that in teams. I think that it's valuable to do that in teams and moving forward too, and that's kind of the impression I got from everybody else today too. So their teachers, instructional coaches, and most of them have been involved in district school improvement in some capacity, or an administrator recommended them to be on those teams. And so it's kind of a peer evaluation model, not evaluation, it's a peer observation model. There's nothing evaluative about the process.
And does the principal select the teachers, or are you going?
Some of them volunteered from DSI, and then some of them, I think the principals asked them to be a part of that team.
Any other questions? Jason?
Excuse me, does this work go beyond the committee, the district committee? Are we going to be having staff engaged in the continuous process during leadership or professional development, excuse me? What would that look like?
So we have a few different avenues for that. We have our elementary leadership team, middle school has an advisory team, high school has a leadership team. Some of the things that they're discussing in DSI are things that really need to be implemented and discussed further at that team level. Even some of the things that they learned from the Vital Network survey, that was discussed first in a small group, and then there's timelines set for when to bring that to the full set of data to the staff level, and then back to the building level team to try to problem solve around it. With professional development specifically, we'll be establishing a district level professional development committee again, and that data that we're gathering after each professional development event, but also at a district level with what we're seeing, can help us drive the conversation on that. So.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Mr. Gaylor, for
Yes,
joining us
thank you.
tonight, and we look forward to the next board meetings as we get to more building level information, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on in our agenda, we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Luck?
Thank you. You have my written report. I will focus on some of these a little more than others, as I typically do. In terms of personnel recommendations, both of these will be are later on in your agenda, and I'm recommending both for approval. It's always tough for us when we are looking at professional leaves of absence of really outstanding teachers, and that's always tough. But my recommendation is for approval to allow Mr. Smith to take that professional leave of absence. He does meet all the criteria that are outlined in the policy for that. And then you'll have a teacher, Mr. Justice. You might be asking the question of, didn't we just do this? Just as a reminder, with Mr. Justice, that was approval for a contract for the remainder of this school year. This would be a continuing contract position. It has been accepted in, and we're very thankful for somebody looking to support the needs of our students in special education. And so this would be a shift for his position, and the reason you're acting on it again is because now this would be a continuing contract. Moving on, we have a director timeline for our JVCTC hiring. We have 4 finalists that are selected. We have a team that are conducting interviews starting this week and continuing on through middle of next week. And so looking to the 19th, hopefully, I will have a recommendation for hire for that position moving forward. Vital Network, Mr. Gaylor referenced that already. And I recently sent out an email that you would have seen also if you should be connected to the listserv. And so a little more detail went into there, but I wanted to send out a message to our staff outlining what we saw at a district level. I think what's really important to remember, and I think this is one of the things that makes this process exciting to me, is it starts at the building levels. And so what I'm referencing is just related to the district. The building is going to go through the same process, but the building level feeds to the district data. And so there's data that's really specific at the district level, and then there's things that are going to vary by building. I'll just give you an example. One of the questions, I'm kind of paraphrasing, the meetings I attend are meaningful and bring value, okay? At a district level, I'm going to see a score, and that tells me something. At the building level, that's going to vary pretty significantly. At one building, that might be one of the strengths of their building in terms of care and support or time management. In another, that might be an area of focus. So when I talk about what I saw at a district level, that's what I can gain, that's what I can glean at a district level. Each building is going to go through building level data. And so that team met, as Nate was here last meeting and talked about the process a little bit. That group already started to meet that day. So they're going to go through and make their action steps specific to their building. What I'm talking about, what I saw at a district level, were the district level types of things that I felt I could glean from. So we scored very, very high in care and support. There's real celebrations here in care and support, particularly things like how do staff feel supported in their building? Do they have generally a feeling of work-life balance? Do they feel supported by their peers? Do they feel heard by their administrators? Those were things that came out at a district level and said yes. Now, again, could you go back to a building level and there are some discrepancies by building? Of course. But as a district, what we saw, those were big celebrations. Some things that I saw that were outliers, how we can improve, related to really two big ones, two large outliers. One, a feeling of staff and their input and involvement in district level decisions. How are they involved? And, are they feeling heard? Are they feeling like they have the ability to communicate and sway or shift the direction of the district in various initiatives? That was one. Relevant and timely professional learning opportunities was another that I felt as a district level really started and stopped with us, of things that we can do better. So one of the things that we're looking at initially, now again, initial strategies, this is where we're starting, it's not necessarily where we're ending, but I wanted to gain a little better understanding of what the district decision making, that question of do I feel involved in the decisions, do I believe that I have voice in district decisions, and I wanted to get a little closer to what that meant. So I asked for a communications committee, we haven't scheduled it yet, but have our communications committee come in and just talk to us. What does that mean? What types of decisions? To start to dig a little bit deeper into what is really a pretty general question. And so what types of things do we want input on? When you say we want more input, what would that look like? Those types of things or where I want to start so I can assess better, well, what would our next steps be after that? The second is professional development, and how can we, I think how we can best do that. And, at a point in time, we had our professional development curriculum committee that was representative of all staff. Mr. Gaylor and I had conversations about reinstituting that committee to making sure that we are having voice and choice in professional learning and that it's tying to our strategic plan, but it's also meeting the needs of our staff. Not just our teaching staff, but our support staff as well. So that's where we're starting with those two. And like I said, that's what we saw as really the biggest rocks at the district level, knowing that buildings are also going to explore their data. And we're going to learn a lot about what our needs are as a district by what our buildings come up with. I'm going to pause just in case there were questions on that. I want to draw attention, it is Giving Hearts Day soon. And I have, since I've been in Jamestown, I've had the honor to be able to serve on the Dollars for Scholars Committee. Really great work and growth has happened in that committee. I've given you an example. Just in 2017, we gave scholarships to 16 students. Last year, we gave 46 scholarships, totaling $45,000, $45,600. When I first came, just as a kind of a time horizon, not that it had anything to do with me, but when I first came, we were giving out $500 scholarships, and that's transitions now to, double and triple the amount of scholarships we were giving and doubling the money. So a lot of work has to go into that. One of the things that we're doing is leveraging Giving Hearts Day. For those that want to consider giving to Dollars for Scholars, I have included a link in there. Those that are watching in the public, they could certainly look at our Facebook pages and give us a call at central office. We could point you in that direction. And we do have some specialized scholarships that come about, like the Wildcat Way, specifically devoted and dollars raised by Gusner staff. There's some Lincoln scholarships like the Alberta Martin Schwartz Scholarship. And if people, the JEA scholarship, if people want to give specifically to a scholarship, they could just mark that as, and we will make sure that it's accounted directly into that scholarship. But wanted to draw attention to that. It's a big day for giving for Dollars for Scholars also, and I recognize the board members. I'll tell you what, these individuals give so much. They give so much of their time and energy to kids, and I just wanted to make sure that they're recognized. Deanne Ament, Bob Toso, Casey Stout, Dave Falk, Ryan Hardy, Elaine Hagelin, Dorothy Lowinger, Sally Ost. We haven't, Sally said she can't be away, so she has to come back. Sally Ost, Donna Schmitz, Dave Smeddy, Christy Grounds, Heidi Larson, Allie Mack, Julie Skunberg, and myself. We serve on that board, and I always enjoy those meetings because a lot of passionate people talking about kids and how they can help kids take that next step in their lives. So want to give credit to them for the work that they do. Another area that we have talked about in the past, we sent out a survey. I talked to you before about the desire to have a survey to study, at least get a sense of where people were at in terms of monthly or bi-monthly pay structures. We currently pay once a month on the 20th. Some of the feedback we heard specifically prior to this survey from our support staff was there are times of the year when the school year starts out and when I'm first employed in the district that make it really tough. And sometimes when you're a new employee, you might be waiting 6 weeks for that paycheck, and that can be a challenge for a lot of families financially. There are times at the beginning of the year, like in September, where that transition back to school, that could be very tough financially for families, in particular our support staff. So we sent out a survey. It was a very simple survey. If we were to explore this, and we talked about the 5th and the 20th would being the two pay periods, what do you, I'm strongly opposed to that on a Likert scale all the way up to I strongly support that. And we actually had 208 responses, 75 support staff, 129 teachers, 3 that categorized themselves as other. And when you looked at the results, 41 were neither strongly opposed or strongly in support of. So that's about 20%. But over half, about 55, almost 56%, were approve or strongly approve of shifting to 2 pay periods a month. Conversely, we had about 24%, almost 25%, 41 staff, about 20% disagreed or strongly disagreed. It was the 51 staff, about 25% that had no strong opinion. So I think we have more information to dig into. We're going to have greater conversation about this. When you looked at the comments, those that were strongly in favor really mentioned what I talked about, that there's some staff, and that's including some of our contracted staff that referenced first pay periods can be kind of tough. And it really came through with our support staff. And even the contracted staff that commented in support, often it was in support of their support staff hourly wage peers that they were working with and wanting to make sure that they were taken care of. They were concerned about finances. A number of staff referenced they know of people that would not choose the school or hadn't chosen the school as an employer because of that 6-week, what would be a long pay period wait, and they've had to figure that out. That was referenced a number of times, either directly, things like, I've been concerned about this for myself and I've considered changing employment, or it's been, I've heard from others who have done this. So some direct, some indirect. The current concerns from staff that wanted to maintain it the same were mostly references that they've already budgeted their monthly budgets, and that could be a challenge for them to change bill pay. Those were the types of things that came up from those that opposed, either strongly opposed or just moderately opposed. And then, like I said, about 25% were just whatever the district opted to do, but wanted to make sure that we were taking care of people and what they needed. So I don't have any suggestions as far as what we will do. We need to have greater conversation, but I wanted to bring your awareness that this is the results that we saw, and that whatever we do, we would give ample time to communicate to our staff what we're going to do and give them time to plan appropriately. Nothing would happen before the beginning of the 24-25 school year. We would need the time to adequately prepare for that, and others would need that time as well. Yep, go ahead.
And I appreciate you doing that survey because especially with the pay period being toward the end of the month, it can provide challenges for staff, especially newly hired staff. I do have a question about our HR and accounting department. What sort of additional burdens would be expected there, and do we have enough staff to do two, because it's double the work, so 2 payrolls?
Right now, we do a second payroll for all the activities. So yes, it is additional work, but I feel like we could handle it. Right now, we have also, for new staff just starting, we have told them that we will pay them with that payroll on the 10th it is right now, so that they don't have to wait so long. So we have already, remedied that a little bit for new employees. But yeah, it would take a little more, but I think we can handle it.
Okay, and thank you for your work with our new staff as well.
And we did have that conversation at the business office before we ever engaged in a greater conversation, is their capacity to do that. And I have really appreciated the willingness during the onboarding process. So when people are just starting in the district, that cuts that difference in half. It's not quite as onerous as it had been. So that's been a good positive change. Should I just continue? Okay. Just drawing awareness to Heidi Eckert and the CTC team, they wrote an aviation mini grant, or I should say they submitted it for FAA workforce development, and that would give some materials that include drones and then a classroom set of various aviation books, if that were received, and I'll let you know what we hear back from that. I wanted to remind you that we've had a team of teacher leaders during the TLA drafting cybersecurity integration plans. So as you're aware, House Bill 1398, that required one of two things: either school districts had to adopt a graduation requirement on cybersecurity, or could create an integration plan that showed how were those standards embedded in curriculum throughout K-12. Our team recommended embedding those standards as opposed to creating a graduation requirement, but we would still offer the course. But this is how the integration plan then becomes a board-adopted plan. So we took that implementation, those ideas for implementation from the Teacher Leadership Academy, created an integration plan, and then linked a lot of resources implementation. That is not ready for prime time yet. Our plan for that, it has to be adopted before July 1st of 2024. Our plan is to have that to the board for your review and approval in April, our second meeting in April. The date now escapes me, the 15th. But that is forthcoming, but that will be the recommendations to embed those standards throughout throughout K-12, and we would have different pathways at the high school level, and one of those pathways would include taking cybersecurity as a standalone class. But others would be embedded in a different way, in different pathways. Yeah, April 15th. Retention and Recruitment Task Force, that is a committee, a task force I've shared before that I do serve on. We're meeting in our first real meeting on February 22nd. I did a little bit of work. It didn't start this way. It just kind of started as a collection of ideas, and it kind of morphed into something a little bit more comprehensive. But what I've included and I've shared now with the board, I see 5 overarching themes and created 24 strategies that connect to those 5 themes. And I think it'd be hard-pressed to find something that doesn't fit in there. But benefits, care for the family, compensation, promotion of the profession, and supports for teachers. Within those 5 overarching themes, 24 different strategies. I'm sure some of them are good, and I'm sure some of them are poor. In my mind, it's, from the task force perspective, I just want to bring up ideas so we can be talking and discussing things. And maybe I have ideas in there that are not viable, but hopefully they lead to discussion on other things. Maybe they can grow into something better. But if you have things to share, I'm happy to bring them up. To me, it's a place to start. I want us to make sure, though, that we are in that task force focused on the right things, and we are broad in our approach and not just thinking about 1 or 2 things, and certainly not starting with the end in mind. Having some good dialogue about what is needed in our profession, specifically in North Dakota, so we can create interventions that do move the bar. We have a period of time right now when we have a lower number of teachers that will be retiring in the next few years. That's representative. I won't go to the details, but it's representative of changes that were made in Teachers Fund for Retirement and eligibility for early retirement. So we have a window of time that's about 4 years where very few teachers across the state of North Dakota are going to be eligible for early retirement. The time to act is right now, and the time to be aggressive, in my opinion, is right now. So when that bubble hits, when it goes back to normal, and we get out of this depression of fewer teachers retiring, that we actually have strategies to bring more, either retain more staff, particularly in those first 10 years, because that is what statistics will tell you nationally across the state, across the country. Teachers in the first 10 years have the greatest level of volatility, and so retaining more, of course, in all categories, but particularly in that category, and then recruitment of a higher number of individuals into the profession. We have a window of time that, like I said, I think we need to be pretty aggressive with and make change to actually refill that bucket, because right now the bucket is full with a bunch of holes in it. And every day a little more water leaks out, and we're not filling the bucket appropriately. So that's our focus right now. Everything else, I think, is on our agenda at later points. But with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions for Dr. Leck? All right. Moving on in our agenda, we have nothing under old business, under new business, nothing under activities. Under buildings and grounds, A, approval of agreement with Tecta America Dakotas for summer roofing projects. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of agreement with Tecta America Dakotas for summer roofing projects. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Under curriculum assessment and instruction, A, approval to add fitness and cardio to JHS course catalog. Is there a motion? Motion by Melissa. Is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion and a second for approval to add fitness and cardio to JHS course catalog. Any discussion? Aaron.
Yeah, with this here, just a couple of items. Just in terms of the scheduling, are there any unintended consequences that could result from adding another course to this? Is there scheduling issues with anything else or anything like that?
It's a good question. I don't believe there would be. There's going to be a finite number of sections that we're going to be able to offer. And if this is one of those that rises to that level of interest, if enough students are interested, then we would offer it. But that would then mean a different class is not offered. So in my mind, it is just another option in the course catalog that students can express interest in. And if we have enough interest, we'll fill it. But I don't see it leading to concerns over FTE or anything like that. Being able to fill a schedule.
Go ahead, Aaron.
And then similar to that then, as opposed to just offering yet another course, did you look at trying to integrate the concepts of the syllabus in with existing courses and just modifying what we already have to accommodate some of what we're trying to achieve with this offering?
So specifically, I would need to talk to the staff that proposed the course to know the details of that. But there is enough interest and a lack of cardio fitness currently that the PE staff wanted to ensure that those that had an interest in that specifically had that option. They felt that there were other offerings that provided some of that, but not enough of it to match what they believed student interest and needs to be. Did I talk enough around your question?
Yeah, you avoided it, yeah. Yeah, because I'm looking at, because this recommendation, indicated here's the course offerings that we have today. I look at those and in my mind, I'm thinking, why don't we just simply adopt this cardio into what we already have and make some of these a more well-rounded as opposed to such a singularly focused, strength and cardio, as opposed to you do strength, you do cardio.
I would want it, these are the times I wish I taught physical education because I'd have a much better answer for this. But I would say that I think it happens to some degree, but the course proposal outlines that there is enough interest and need that it should be a standalone offering and not just included. I think now we include aspects of fitness, cardio in almost every offering we have. But the physical education department at the high school believes that there is enough interest and enough need to do it on its own and not just embed it in others. Because I would say that happens in almost every course. There is levels of that. And I think if you're adding it to, say, strength and cardio, that would target a specific student or group of students. Right now, there's a number of students that just want that strength component, and this would be another aspect of that same idea. They want simply the cardio side of that because that's going to interest different people and suit different needs. So I guess from my perspective, it should be a standalone class rather than just embedding it in. But really, ultimately, when students fill out their schedules, we'll see what the level of interest would be.
Yeah, and the reason I bring this up is just because, we got a fixed number of resources to work with, and does this then water it down to the point where, okay, now we have to extend ourselves to support this? That's why I bring it up, so.
And I think that's fair, but at the end of the day, we have a finite number of sections. It's just about what is going to fit into those finite number of sections. And if that interest is 2 sections of cardio, 1 section of cardio, 5 sections of strength, to me, it's what do the kids need? What are kids looking for? Because we want them to be taking some level of physical education to make sure that we want them to be interested in whatever their course offering is, so they're continuing to stay active because we know how important that is. And to me, we fill out whatever that finite number of sections is with whatever student interest is, just like we do with any elective or opportunity in a core class.
Dr. Leck, do you see this increasing FTE or any overload kind of situations? with
No,
having it? Okay.
no, not directly. It wouldn't in any, I suppose, anytime we have scheduling, we could be talking about overload classes, but this decision to adopt this class would not directly relate to overloads. We aren't going to offer it no matter what. We're going to offer it if there's interest, which would then take away from the interest in other classes, which would decrease those number of sections. So we're still going to offer the same number of sections.
Diane, I'm not sure who was first here. Diane, go ahead.
I totally understand Mr. Roberts' point of view, and I think you've definitely spoken to it. I was looking at the course objectives, and I really like them. I like understanding how diet influences overall health and how it influences mental health. And I want to remember that heart disease is the #1 killer in this country. So I think it's quite appropriate that we offer it. Thank you.
Steve.
When you say interest and need, how is that gauged? Is that from the students or is that from the teachers with, I guess, in regard to this offering or any other offering that comes forward?
It's a great question. It would be student interest when they sign up for their courses. And then we input the interests into Power Schedule through Power School, which then spits out what an appropriate schedule would look like. And when we have enough students and space, then we can offer that class. But we put in the parameters like sections, and those can be inputted into Power Scheduler. And Mr. Gaylor might have to help me on this, but usually when we put in that level of interest, we get about 88 to 94% consistency with what people want and what we're able to offer. Is that about right?
Mr. Gaylor, do you have anything to
Or
add?
am I pretty positive, on the high
Yeah,
side of that?
That's a little bit on the high side, just in terms of where the schedule falls and what their competing electives might be. We're usually closer to about 75 to 80% in the first load. Then you might see, oh man, we had this whole group of students that didn't get into what they wanted for this. Is there something we can move in the schedule to better accommodate them? It's tougher when you have one section of fitness and cardio, for example, because there's just that many more complications with other things that students want. So you take your initial requests, there might be, let's say that there's 60 students that want fitness and cardio. You do your first load within Power Scheduler, and then 45 of them are going to get into it. Now you have to decide, we have space for 2 sections. Do we have sufficient enrollment in both sections? Maybe you've got 28 in one, but you've only got 16 in the other, and you want to say, nope, we're just going to be able to offer the one because we have this other higher priority or higher enrollment class that we could offer at that time. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor, for helping us out. Any other questions?
Well, not really. I mean, I understand once it's a class offering, the interest, but how do we get to this point where we're proposing this class rather, I mean, you say interest and need, somebody has brought this up already. Was it students or staff?
Thank you. Okay, I didn't understand your question, so I'm batting 0 officially on question and answer, but the course proposals are brought forward by the department. So they identified the need, I would assume, in visiting with students, but it was their need that they looked at a need of a hole in their curriculum. And I have absolutely no data to support this, it's just my own belief, but I would think this would be an extremely popular physical education option because it's different than some of the other physical education that we're offering right now. So I think there would be a high level of interest, but I could be wrong. But no, it starts with the teacher identifying the need.
Jason.
2 questions. Grades 10 through 12. is this theoretically a course that could be taken more than once?
I don't believe so, but I will be contradicted.
Yeah, it depends on the course code. I'd have to look at what the actual course code is, but some of them allow you to accumulate more credits within that, and some of them are limited to just either half or 1 credit.
And kind of off topic, but related, our course offerings, is there a certain amount of time they stay on the list? You know, maybe there's 3-4 students annually interested. I mean, is our list of course offerings, do you kind of see what I'm asking? Do we ever shed any of those?
We do. We do look at them, I don't want to say annually, but it likely is annually. And I think we have shaved some just as part of, you know, we don't want to offer courses that are not taken or relevant any longer. But there are courses in our course book that we don't offer every year.
Do you have a follow-up, Jason? Okay. Any other questions or discussion? So right now, we have a motion and a second for approval to add fitness and cardio to JHS course catalog. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Oppose, same sign? Motion approved. Okay, and then moving on, under finance, we don't have anything. Under personnel, A, approval of leave of absence for the 2024 school year for number 1, Ben Smith. Is there a motion? Motion by Diane. Is there a second? Second by Aaron. We have a motion and a second for approval of leave of absence for the 2024 school year for Ben Smith. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. B, approval to hire for 2024 to 2025 school year upon a successful background check. Number 1, Steve Justice. Is there a motion? Motion by Melissa. Second by Jason. We have a motion and a second for approval to hire for the 2024 to 2025 school year upon a successful background check. Number 1, Steve Justice. Any discussion? Melissa?
More just a question. Hasn't he already undergone a background check to be working in the school district? Do we have to do another one?
So that was sort of worded incorrectly. That really should have said, I just noticed it as soon as you were reading it, that should have said, not upon a successful background check, but a receipt of appropriate credentials. And that has already been received. We were made notice that he was accepted into the resident teacher program this morning, so that's already a non-issue. But thank you for that clarification.
Any other discussion?
I don't think so. He's already would have received a background check, so it is.
It's still accurate.
It's still appropriate. And
the
I'm
oth-
not concerned about the credential because he's already in.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved, and welcome again, Steve, right? Yes, coming. Under C, approval of resignation at conclusion of the 2023 to 2024 school year. Number 1, Natalie Schrader, and number 2, Beth Fritz. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of the resignation at the conclusion of the 2023 to 2024 school year. Number 1, Natalie Schrader. Number 2, Beth Fritz. Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved, and certainly thank them both for their years of service to our district, so thank you. The superintendent summative evaluation timeline is in your drive, and if you don't complete the portions you need to complete, Amy will call you and tell you to, and probably call me, and remind us to get it completed, and then I will, Jason.
Just a thought I'll throw out there again. Our continuous improvement strategy is taking, it's gaining traction. We saw good information tonight here. I would like the board to consider, reorganizing the evaluation topics to be more in line with the culture of learning, leadership of learning. it would just seem to add more consistency. I'm not saying that a lot of the topics would even change, because they would all fit in there somewhere. Just food for thought. I don't know how that would be done or come up or worked on, but I think that would be relevant at this time.
Are you thinking like a task force, Jason, or, I mean, I think we need to get through this one because we're partially through this one, how it is, just because I think it's not enough time to gather new data. But, yep, Dr. Leck?
I appreciate that feedback. Give me an opportunity, as we kind of end our school year, you get through this version or this school year, and crosswalk where I think that could be reasonably fed into, because I understand where you're coming from, alignment to those same measures. It makes sense.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think there's enough overlap in there already. I don't know that we need to really upset that apple cart. I kind of like having the consistency of, the twice annually, or, how we do it. If we try to drive it to alignment to the strategic plan, and then we make some adjustments within the strategic plan for focus, and then having to walk that back into a superintendent evaluation, I think that would complicate things. And lose that consistency. So I guess I'm good with where it's at.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Dr. Leck?
I do wonder if we could do both. If I do a crosswalk, I could align them to the current without changing the categories, but give a companion document that shares where they align to. That would, I think, kind of answer both, where it keeps the consistency, but also helps the board see where they align to.
Any other discussion? Okay. Yeah, we'll keep looking into this and create, gather a task force if we need to look into it a little more, and keeping in mind some of the discussions that we've had here tonight. So thank you. However, for this, since we're less than 3 weeks away here from when needing this completed, I think we'll stick with what we have, because we already have some data inputted, and we don't want to start changing that right now. And if you have questions about if you're missing a piece, just let Amy can check for you. Moving on, under policies and procedures, we don't have anything. Under tuition A, approval of a tuition agreement for number 1, 6th grade student to Medina Public School for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Steve. We have a motion and a second for approval of tuition agreement for 6th grade student to Medina Public School for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Number 8, other, nothing under there. Items for future, yep, Dr. Leck.
If I can just share under other, just want to give a recognition to, it is National School Counselors Week this week. Really a critical piece of our educational team, and I wanted to make sure that we recognize them on really an important group that does a lot of work, all in the name of what's best for kids, and I want to make sure that we recognize them today.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, and thank you to support for our schools. And Christy?
I just also want to thank the board for the meat and cheese trays that we received today. That was a nice treat, so thank you.
All right. And items for future agenda. Does the board have anything that they'd like to see on future agendas? Dr. Leck, one thing I was thinking of when we bring forth the cybersecurity piece, maybe we could just have some board education also on a reminder of the pathways we currently have, and just to kind of the structure for graduation requirements. Oh, okay. As long as you're, at that agenda time in a month or so.
Just want to remind you, Gail.
And then, yes, and was it the Giving Hearts? A reminder, so.
Gail just wanted to have a comment.
Oh, okay.
Didn't
And I
have a
think
chance when it was.
If Gail is still, Gail, can you hear us? While Christy figures that out, are there any other items for future agendas? Diane? Oh, okay, hold on one second. Gail, go ahead. The microphone's on the phone, so everyone can hear you, Gail.
I would just like to encourage others to, board members to give to Giving Heart, perhaps in memory of someone they've worked with or know in our school system. I donated in Jane Ani's honor.
Thank you, Gail. So just a reminder to give to, in case you didn't hear, give to Giving Hearts. And she said you can also give in honor of someone if you would like to do that. So thank you for those comments. Diane, you had an item for future agendas.
Well, perhaps I should come in and just talk to Dr. Leck about it, but I had brought this up a couple of months ago that I'd like to see what kind of follow-up has occurred with diversity training, with anything besides the one summit that we did. I think we are ripe for this right now. It is the time to make a move on it. And extending into the future, are teachers talking about this more? What is happening? Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Just a comment, just to kind of lay the foundation for what we'll be bringing up. We have had a series of meetings with Tristan Love. He works for Fargo Public Schools. He is their Director of Educational Justice. He has come to a series of administrative meetings with us. We have brought in Ricky White, who was a trainer at the beginning of the year for staff. That was an all staff. So we've had a series of things that we can kind of start to outline, but I'm happy to share that. And lots of things, you know, even though we don't always bring them up in a report, lots of things still happening with that continuous improvement cycle. So we'll gather something and look at that at a high level anyway of the types of things that we talked about.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Anything else for future agenda? Okay. If not, meetings to be scheduled. We have a school board meeting Monday, February 19th, 2024 at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room. Your monthly superintendent evaluation is Section 1, Goal and Vision Setting, and Section 5, Operations and Resource Management. There being no further business before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.